Whose body was found Tuesday behind a Tyler apartment complex, is opening up about her friend and who she was in person. KETK's Ashlyn Anderson sat down with her to hear about the impact Deja Hood left in their hearts. Ashlyn.
Casey, Sarah Evans says they weren't just best friends, but they were more like sisters. She says Deja Hood was the most positive, genuine soul that will be missed by everyone.
A best friend's worst nightmare.
But it really just hurt my heart. It did. It hurt my heart that she had to sit there and suffer.
Sarah.
In the early evening of 6th October, Deja Hood was simply trying to make her friend laugh. Something that many of us do every single day. A joke, a smile, a moment shared between friends. But what Deja didn't know, what no one could have known, was that this simple, innocent exchange would be the very thing that took her life. A life filled with promise, dreams, and a future so full of potential. What unfolded in the moments after that joke was not just unexpected, it was terrifying. It would change everything and leave everyone wondering how something so small could lead to such unimaginable loss. Why did a single playful moment turn into a deadly confrontation? How did a friend, someone who was trusted and close, become the one to bring an end to her life? What was it that pushed him over the edge? How could something as simple as a joke remind someone of the past, something so painful, so deep, that they would act on it with such violence? The answers are not simple, and they are darker than anyone could have imagined. We're left with questions that can't easily be answered, but they are questions that demand an explanation. Stick with us as we uncover the truth behind this horrific event that took place in a seemingly ordinary moment. Before we begin, our hearts are heavy as we extend our deepest condolences to the family, friends, and neighbors of Deja Hood. The pain of losing a loved one, especially someone so young, leaves a void that words can hardly express. To Deja's parents, Lakita and David, her siblings, and everyone who knew her, we cannot begin to understand the grief you are enduring. Please know that our thoughts are with you during this time. We hope that the memories of her laughter, her dreams, and the light she brought into your lives can offer you some comfort in the days to come. Deja wasn't someone who could be easily forgotten. She wasn't just another name, another face in the crowd. Her smile had a way of pulling people in, her energy contagious, her laughter, well, it was the kind of sound that made you feel like everything was okay, even when things weren't. Deja had dreams, she had plans, she wanted to do something with her life, something that mattered. From school plays where she showed off her talent to starting her own small business, she was already making her mark. At the young age of 18, she was already working toward her future, taking on responsibilities that most people her age weren't even thinking about. She was on a path to success, and her potential was endless. But Deja's life wasn't all about business and ambition. She had this incredible warmth, something that made people feel comfortable around her. She had this natural ability to make others laugh, to bring joy, even on the roughest days. She loved children, and if there were any around, you could bet she would be the one with a baby on her lap or holding someone's little one with a smile. She took care of people, her cousins, her friends' kids, always there, always with a heart that was big enough to take on the world. But more than that, Deja had an artist's soul. She had the hands of someone who could make anything beautiful, whether it was her work with hair and makeup, or simply creating something to share with others. Everything she touched seemed to turn into something special. Her future was bright, and yet it was all taken away so suddenly, and the world, it lost so much in the blink of an eye. Deja met Jamaria like many do, through mutual friends, shared laughs and everyday conversations. It wasn't anything special at first, just two people connecting over similar interests. They bonded over their humor, their love for life, and a sense of shared experiences that made their friendship feel natural. Deja, with her bright smile and infectious energy, had a way of making anyone feel at ease. And Jamaria was no different. It started like any friendship, carefree, lighthearted, full of potential. But what Deja couldn't have known, what no one could have guessed, was that for Jamaria, there was more to this friendship than what was on the surface. For him, there were feelings hidden deep, emotions buried away, and a past that wasn't as easy to forget. Over time, things began to shift. The laughter, the conversations, the moments shared, they started to feel different. What once seemed like an easy connection now carried a subtle tension, a strain that neither of them could fully explain. Deja, in her trusting nature, hadn't noticed the small signs, the hints of something else that were starting to emerge in Jamoria's actions. What started as a friendly bond soon became something more complicated. Small disagreements turned into bigger misunderstandings. It wasn't loud, it wasn't overt, but the tension was there. And Deja, in her desire to believe the best in people, refused to see the cracks forming beneath the surface. She couldn't know that what she thought was a harmless friendship would soon unravel in a way no one could have predicted. It was supposed to be a light-hearted moment, just a small playful gesture. Deja, as she always did, tugged on Jamaria's ear. For her, it was something innocent, a way to tease and share a laugh. But for Jamaria, something shifted in that moment. He didn't laugh. He didn't take it lightly. That small action reminded him of someone from his past, his ex-girlfriend. It was a gesture she had made, and suddenly, everything inside him seemed to snap. The smile, the playfulness, it was gone. Deja had no way of knowing that a simple joke could ignite a storm inside Jamaria. His anger took over him in an instant. Without warning, he struck her a harsh blow to her face. The force of it shocked her, leaving her dazed and off balance. But that wasn't enough. In his rage, he grabbed her by the throat, choking her with a force that left her struggling for air. Deja never saw it coming. Her mind must have been racing, trying to make sense of what was happening, trying to find a way to stop it. But the anger Jamara felt wasn't about the joke, it was about something deeper, something she couldn't have understood in that moment. Then, as if he couldn't control himself anymore, he reached for something nearby, a hammer. The violence didn't stop after the first strike, or the second. He kept hitting her, his rage pouring out in a way that left her no chance to defend herself. Each blow was an outburst, a release of everything he couldn't control. When the anger finally faded, it left nothing but devastation in its wake. Deja's life was over in a few moments, taken from her in a brutal outburst. And yet, Jamaria wasn't done. He moved her body as if she were nothing, a forgotten thing. He wrapped her up and disposed of her, casting her aside like she didn't matter. He threw her body into a ravine behind the Holly Tree Apartments, as if there was no value left in her, as if she were just something to be hidden away. Jamaria didn't laugh. Instead, he froze. For a brief moment, everything seemed to stop. The lightness in the air, the casual tone of their conversation, it all seemed to disappear in an instant. Deja must have noticed the change, the way his face tightened, how his posture shifted. But she didn't have time to process it. His eyes, those eyes that had always been filled with warmth, now held something else. It was like a switch had flipped, and Deja was caught off guard by it. There was a coldness there, something she hadn't seen before. He didn't say anything at first. He didn't need to. The silence between them grew heavy, suffocating, and then the words came out slow, deliberate, as if he had been holding them back, waiting for the right moment. "Don't ever mention her name again." Those words cut through the air, and with them, everything changed. Deja, who had only been playing, who had no idea what was happening in Jamaria's mind, must have felt a chill run down her spine. She probably thought he was joking at first, but his tone left no room for misunderstanding. In a matter of seconds, the laughter, the lightheartedness, they were gone. What followed was sudden. There was no time for warning, no time to stop it. The shift in Jamaria's emotions happened so quickly it left no chance for Deja to fully react. His anger exploded raw and uncontrollable, and it all became irreversible. Every action, every second that passed after that was a moment that couldn't be undone. In a flash, everything changed. Jamaria's anger, something Deja couldn't have seen coming, exploded. It wasn't something slow, something that built up over time. No, this was sudden. One moment they were talking, and the next he struck her. His fist hit her with such force she didn't have time to react, didn't have time to understand what was happening. It was raw, impulsive. The world seemed to shift, and Deja, who had only been joking, trying to have fun, found herself in the midst of something she couldn't escape from. He didn't stop. After that first blow, it was like something inside him snapped completely. He grabbed her, his hands around her throat. She struggled, tried to fight back, tried to make sense of the chaos unfolding, but his grip was too tight. Every breath she tried to take was choked off, every attempt to break free slipping further away. Her body went limp, and there was no way to fight it anymore. The violence wasn't just physical, it was overpowering, suffocating, inescapable. Deja's final moments must have been a blur, her mind trying to make sense of the shock, the pain, and the fear. She couldn't have known that her life would end like this, by the hands of someone she trusted. Her final breath, the last thing she tried to say, was swallowed by the violence. There was no understanding, no chance to explain, no time to make sense of it. Her world, everything she had ahead of her, slipped away so fast it was over before anyone could truly comprehend what had happened. The light in her eyes faded, and with it a future that could have been. When the authorities arrived at the scene, they were met with a horror that no one should ever have to witness. Deja was gone, her life taken in the blink of an eye, left nothing but confusion and shock in its wake. The apartment, once filled with warmth and laughter, now stood as a cold, silent reminder of the tragedy that had just unfolded. The scene told its own story, but the answers, what had truly happened, why Deja's life was taken so violently, were nowhere to be found. The police were left with more questions than answers, and the weight of it all hung in the air. But as they began to piece together the details, slowly, bit by bit, the picture started to come together. The question of why was still hanging in the air, unanswered, but the investigation was only beginning. But what came next would turn everything on its head. When police began questioning Jamoria, the man who had been with Deja that night, they expected him to be just another witness, someone who could explain what had happened. What he said, though, would shock everyone. It wasn't just an explanation, it was a confession. His words revealed something no one had expected, something that would change the course of the investigation. And just like that, the truth was suddenly far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into what Jamoria said and how it changed everything about the case. What made Jamoria do this? What drove him to such an extreme, such a violent end to Deja's life? Was it a moment of loss of control, a snap of the mind, or was there something far deeper lurking beneath the surface, something that had been there all along but remained hidden until that moment? To understand why Jamoria acted the way he did, we have to look beyond that one fateful night. We need to look at his past, his emotions, the things that shaped him, the things he never spoke about. Jamoria wasn't a stranger to conflict. His past, his relationships, his own struggles, they all played a role in how he saw the world and how he responded to the world around him. It's clear that his relationship with his ex-girlfriend left deep scars. Maybe he never truly healed from it. Maybe those feelings, those unresolved emotions finally boiled over. The simple tug on his ear, something that was meant to be playful, became the trigger. It wasn't just the joke, it was everything that had been building up inside him, everything he hadn't dealt with, a past that hadn't been closed. And in that moment when Deja's gesture reminded him of his ex, it was more than he could take. But did he even recognize what was happening in his mind? Did he understand that what he was feeling wasn't just anger? It was something far more complicated, something that had been festering for far too long. The rage didn't come out of nowhere. It was there, lying in wait. And when it came, it was uncontrollable. The pieces began to fall into place as the investigation continued, but what they revealed was far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. At first, it seemed like a simple case of a moment gone wrong, a misinterpretation, a burst of anger that escalated too quickly. But as the police dug deeper, they uncovered something much darker. The more they learned about Jamoria, the more they realized this wasn't just about one bad night or a sudden fit of rage. It was a history, a pattern that had been building for years. Jamoria's past began to surface, his relationships, his temper, the way he had reacted to certain situations. Everything seemed to point to a much deeper issue. He had a history of anger, of jealousy, of not being able to control his emotions when it came to the people he cared about. But it wasn't just about Deja. It was about someone else, someone from his past his ex-girlfriend, whose presence seemed to haunt him even long after their relationship had ended. The tension between Jamaria and his ex was palpable, and it appeared that those unresolved feelings, the things he had never dealt with, were the real fuel behind what happened that night. Deja, in a simple, innocent moment, unknowingly became a trigger for everything Jamaria had bottled up for so long. The investigation didn't just reveal a tragic crime, it revealed the emotional turmoil that had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long, and the twist was clear. This wasn't just a crime of passion, it was the culmination of a series of unresolved feelings, past wounds, and a man who hadn't learned how to cope with his emotions in a healthy way. Deja's family was left to pick up the pieces of a tragedy they never saw coming. One moment they were making plans, watching their daughter grow, dreaming of the future she was on the verge of creating. The next, everything changed. Their daughter, their sister, their friend, gone in an instant. No warning, no preparation. Deja's mother, Lakita, had spent so many years raising her daughter, guiding her, teaching her. All of a sudden, she was faced with a reality no parent should ever have to face. The weight of that loss, the emptiness of knowing that her daughter would never walk through that door again, was something no one could prepare for. Deja's father, David, felt the same devastation. It's hard to even imagine the toll it took on him to lose his child to violence, to have her life stolen away by someone she trusted. Her siblings, too, were left to deal with the loss, trying to make sense of something that could never make sense. A future without Deja, without her laughter, her light, her caring nature, became a harsh reality that they would have to face every single day. Their lives would never be the same. The emotional toll was immeasurable. The dreams they had for her, the things she was going to accomplish, were shattered in an instant, and no one could find a way to fill the hole she left behind. It wasn't just about losing her, it was about losing the future they had all been working toward. It was a loss of hope, a loss of everything Deja could have been, all because of a moment of rage and violence that took her away from them forever. Jamaria's trial eventually reached its conclusion and the verdict was clear. He was found guilty. Guilty of taking Deja's life in a moment of uncontrolled rage. Guilty of shattering a family, a future, and a young woman's dreams. But even with the conviction, it wasn't enough to bring her back. The damage was done. And no sentence, no matter how harsh, could ever undo the pain that Deja's family was left with. The justice system had spoken, but for Lakita, David, and everyone who loved Deja, the scars would remain. They could never get her back. They could never heal the hole she left behind. While the trial may have offered a sense of closure, the emptiness of her absence would linger forever. Deja's family would carry the weight of this loss for the rest of their lives. The world had been robbed of a young woman full of potential, and no verdict could ever fill that space. No matter the outcome in the courtroom, nothing could bring Deja back to them. Her life, her laughter, her future gone in an instant. And that, perhaps, is the greatest tragedy of all. What do you think really led to Deja's death? Was it the result of a sudden, uncontrolled moment? Or was there something deeper? Something that had been building for much longer, lurking just beneath the surface? Could it have been avoided if things had played out differently? Or was this tragedy always waiting to happen? Was this a crime born out of raw emotion? Or was there something more behind it? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. Let us know what you think in the comments below. How do you think Jamaria's past and emotions played into that fateful night? Was there a turning point that could have stopped it all? Your opinions matter, so please share them with us. If you believe that Deja's story deserves to be heard, that her life and the tragedy surrounding her death should not be forgotten, take a moment to hit the like button and share this video. Let's make sure her story lives on, not just as a memory, but as a reminder of how important it is to address the emotions that we sometimes push aside, to recognize the signs of unresolved pain before it's too late. Share this video with your friends, your family, and anyone who needs to hear this story. Let's make sure that the dangers of unchecked emotions and sudden violence are not overlooked. Deja's life mattered, and her story deserves to be known.